representation and explicitly constructed the matrices corresponding to the spin half, that is the fundamental or the two-dimensional representation of SU2. So these are the known Pauli matrices times half that you already know. So one has to also calculate the other spin representations like the spin 1 representation or spin 3 half representation. For example, the spin half representation is very important when you discuss gauge theory or say, for example, neutrino physics. In other places in particle physics, these are very important. This spin 1 representation, which is called the triplet representation, because the number of states is 3. For spin 1, we know 2j plus 1, so 2 into 1 plus 1 is 3. So these triplet states are very important in many places in physics. So we have to calculate, like the way we calculated this using these results, the way we calculated the spin half representation. So you also can calculate spin once. This will be your homework, home assignment problem. I'll give later. I'll send you later. You can do it for your practice. Okay. So today what we will do is, so we obtain the irreducible representation. Today what we will do, we will actually use the highest weight construction. You remember I mentioned that this is called the highest weight construction. That is, you start with the state with highest eigenvalue of the J3, that is called the weight. Okay. So this also provides a systematic approach procedure for bringing an arbitrary finite dimensional representation into block diagonal form. Okay. So what we will do here, we will actually consider tensor product representation in this class. Tensor product of two irreducible representation of the generators of SU2, and then these are bigger representation, and then we will try to bring them into block diagonal form, that is in the completely reduced form, okay, in terms of the irreducible representations in the diagonal. So the steps are the following. So again, as you did in the case of irreducible representation, while obtaining irreducible representation, you first take the generator J3 and diagonalize it, and then find the states with the highest J3 value, which I call small j. And then for each such state, if there are more than one state with highest J3 value, so explicitly construct the states of the irreducible spin j representation by applying the lowering operator that we described yesterday to the states with highest J3. So once you obtain the irreducible representation, you just set aside the subspace spanned by these representations. Okay. So and concentrate on the subspace, or so it's a bigger representation. So you start with the highest J3 value that you have and use the lowering operator, get the irreducible spin j representation, states of the irreducible spin j representation, and then just set aside the subspace spanned by these states, and then concentrate on the subspace orthogonal to it. So remember that all the states that you obtain this way are orthogonal. So and then take the remaining states. Again, you go to step 2, that is find the states with the highest J3 value of the remaining states, and start again with the states with the next highest J3 value, and so on. Using the lowering operator, you can obtain all the irreducible representations of this bigger finite dimensional representation. At the end, you will be able to construct a basis of the form Jm alpha like this. Okay. So don't bother too much about this quantity alpha. It's not important, because the example that we will discuss later will not use any such alpha here. Okay. So here this the state that you get, the m there refers to the J3 value I already mentioned, and J refers to the irreducible representation, which is essentially the highest J3 value in the representation. Okay. J refers to the irreducible representation. Alpha refers to all the other observables that can be diagonalized to label the state, they characterize the state, but it's not that important because it is nothing to do with group theory there. Okay. So group theory part is this J and M. Okay. And we discussed yesterday that these states are orthonormal states, so they satisfy the following orthonormality relation. That is J prime M prime alpha prime, J M alpha, this inner product, that is delta M prime M, delta J prime J, delta alpha prime alpha. Now this is fine. This is the way we will see explicit examples today. Now it is just an interesting observation is that these Kronecker deltas, this delta m prime and delta j prime j m prime m, they are also required by Source lemma. Okay, that Source lemma that you learned earlier in the finite group. This summed over m m double prime here, as you can see. Okay, with this quantity. Okay. You can also insert a complete set of states on the left hand side of JA here. So that also I have done it here. Okay. And then on the extreme right hand side of this line, you see that this is the JA matrix element of JA, the generator of SU2 in this spin J, small j representation. This was spin J prime and this was spin J. And this is written element wise. Okay, so this is written element wise, summed over. So it's like as you can see, it's like this condition of the Source lemma, right? So D1 is the representation, D1A, this you can consider as this A, this intertwiner that we discussed in Source lemma, D1A equal to A D2. Okay, if you just write that in terms of the elements, summed over the elements, then it would look like this. And that means this quantity J prime m prime alpha and Jm alpha, this inner product, this quantity commutes with all the elements of the irreducible representation, this of J. Okay. So that means if J prime not equal to J, then it is 0. We know that. Okay. D1 A equal to A D2. If D1 not equal to D2, then A is 0. We know. Or if D1 equal to D2, that is if J prime equal to J. Okay. Then we know that it is proportional to the identity matrix. In this case, element wise we have written, so it should be proportional to delta m prime n. So this is essentially this quantity, as I said, it commutes with all the elements of the reducible representation. So this is proportional to this delta m prime m, delta j prime j. So this is just a passing note that Source lemma also tells you, and we have also constructed this way that the states are orthonormal. So fine. So let us now go directly to this tensor product representation, bigger representation, and we will see how to get them into the completely reduced form. That is, we will find out the states, all the states which will bring them into completely reduced form. Okay, that is all the irreducible representation will be in the blocks of the diagonal of this bigger representation. So we discussed, remember we discussed tensor product in our class earlier also. I will just repeat it. So let us again revise it in our discussion of the representation of SU2. SU2 context, again we repeat it. Okay. So you will remember all this. Suppose that D1 is an m-dimensional representation acting on a space with basis vectors this I, ket I. Okay. So D1 is some representation which acts on the space with basis vectors I, where I goes from 1 to m. So m basis vectors are there in that space, m-dimensional space. And D2 is an n-dimensional representation, so it acts on a space with basis vector x, I denote it by x, where x goes from 1 to m. So if you have that, then we can make an m cross n-dimensional space called the tensor product space by taking the basis vectors labeled by both I and x in an ordered pair. So I denote it by this ket I comma x. Okay. So here I goes from 1 to m and x goes from 1 to n. So naturally the space is m cross m times n dimensional. So suppose m is 3 and n is 2, it will be 6 dimensional, like that. So as I said, I goes from 1 to n and x goes from 1 to n. The ordered pair Ix runs over n times n different combinations. So you know about this. So on this larger space, we can define a new representation called the tensor product representation. I denote it by D1 this cross D2. Okay. Now this sometimes I'll write it as D1 cross 2 like that. Now we'll see that the matrix element of D1 cross 2 are products of those of D1 and D2. Okay. So if you just look at the matrix elements of D1 cross 2, okay, this is defined as the product of the matrix element of D1 in the basis I and K, and product of the matrix element of D2 with the basis X. Okay. So if you just look at in terms of the elements, then it looks like D1 cross 2 IXKY, that is the way you write down the tensor product matrix elements, is D1GIK and D2GXY. D1GIK and D2GXY. So this kind of tensor product system, you know, in physics you have encountered many times. So whenever a system responds to the group transformation in more than one way, we can form a tensor product of two sets of states which transform under the group. Okay? For example, in spectroscopy, you have seen that if a particle carries both spin and orbital angular momentum, the system can be described in a space that one can think of as built of a product of two different kinds of space. Okay, one is for the orbital angular momentum, say L, and other is the spin, say S. Okay, that you have seen. Okay, so one can think that so particle carries both spin and orbital angular momentum. So the system can be described in a space that one can think of as built of a product of two different kinds. One corresponding to the orbital angular momentum, other corresponding to the spin. Okay, so that is to say that this tensor product space is defined as this I direct product with X. Okay, so we'll explicitly see how it works. So these are the basic things that one should know before going further. Okay. So the first state I transforms under representation D1 and the second X transforms under representation D2. Okay. And if that is so, the tensor product state transforms as follows. So D1 cross 2 acting on the states I, comma X. Okay. So that is the tensor product representation, and these are the corresponding states on which it acts. Okay. And then now you just insert this complete set of states here. Okay. This JY, and so this is the matrix element of D1 cross 2 JYIX. Okay. Now JY is written as the tensor product of this J and Y ket. Okay. And this according to the definition, D1 cross 2 JYIX, as I have defined here, is D1G JI D2GYX. Okay. And remember that here the J is summed over the repeated index, and here Y is summed over repeated index. Okay. Now if you just expand this summation, if you just do this sum, okay, and just choosing say J goes from 1 to 3 and Y goes from 1 to 3, okay, whatever, you can easily verify that because these are the matrix elements. Okay, it's written in terms of the elements. You can easily verify that this is essentially like J ket D1G JI times Y ket D2G YX. So this is very easy to see. If you just expand the sum, you will see that actually this quantity, whatever I have written here, it can be written like this. So what is this J D1G JI? This is essentially D1G acting on the state I, and Y D2G YX is just D2G acting on the state X, right? Because this, you remember, we have studied it earlier. For example, let me see, we studied it somewhere here. You see here that XA, some XA, that is our J for as a D there, for example, acting on I can be written as J XA JI. So XA JI J ket here, it's like XA acting on I. So that is what I have written there. Yes. So this means this is D1G acting on I, and this means this is D2G acting on X. So this means that the two kets are just transforming.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, J comma Y kit. Why do you write J kit and Y kit? Mane why?
That is the definition of the tensor product kits. Okay. So that is the idea. So that I have defined.
Oh, अच्छा. Okay, sir.
That is okay.
Okay,
That
sir.
is the definition. I comma X is I kit and X kit.
Okay, sir. Fine, sir.
Yeah. So that means what? When the tensor product state act on this state, it is like the two kets are just transforming independently under their own representation. So that is important actually, and that will apply this in our subsequent discussion. Okay, so remember this. So now let us look at the transformation near identity, because we want to see. So these were the representation of the group elements. Okay, G is written here, you can see. Now we want to see the representation of the generators, and you know we already discussed earlier that if you want to look at the generators, you just look at near the identity, so that the exponential group elements are what? Exponential of the generators. So you just close to the identity, you can write it as 1 plus for infinitesimal parameter 1 plus alpha AXA, and then you can pick up the generators there. So let us look at the transformation near the identity for infinitesimal alpha. Alpha is infinitesimal here. So you know that the group element of the tensor product sets is e to the power I alpha A J 1 cross 2. J is the generator corresponding to this tensor product representation 1 cross 2. Okay, and it acts on I comma X states. So this is essentially the thing. D 1 cross 2 J is I'm doing it close to the identity. So I'm writing as e to the power I alpha X. So expanding close to the identity is 1 plus that. Okay. Now again I am just using this complete set of states. So that is giving me the matrix element. So JY 1 plus I alpha A J 1 cross 2 in between JY and IX. So this is the identity operator in the appropriate space. So that gives me this quantity element wise, of course, because these are the matrix element. That will give me delta Ji delta Yx. Okay, and this will give me what? This will give me Ja 1 cross 2 Jy Ix matrix element. Okay. So this is the thing. Now you see that this quantity here, as I showed you, that tensor product representation can be written as the product of the two independent representation like that. And they can also be written in terms of the individual generators, like D1 can be written to the power I alpha 1 G1 this J1, and D2 can be written as to the power I alpha 2 J2. Okay, alpha A J like that. Okay, for the corresponding representation. So you can also write this quantity as product of this delta Ji 1 plus I alpha A J1, 1 corresponds to the first representation, times delta Yx I alpha A J2, 2 corresponding to the second representation. This product representation in 1 cross 2, so it's 1 and 2. Okay. And if you just, so they are the same. So if you just take the product and compare these coefficients of alpha A, okay, the first power of alpha, what you get is this quantity, that the generator of the tensor product representation J 1 cross 2 Jy Ix element wise, okay, is equal to J1, the generator of in the one representation, one irreducible representation, times delta Yx plus delta Ji, generator in the two representation Yx element. Okay. So this essentially shows that when we multiply the representations, we find out the tensor product representation, the generators add. Okay, in the sense shown here. Okay, generators add meaning. So these are these delta Kronecker deltas are the, you can think of them as the identity matrix in the appropriate space, depending on the dimension of this 2 and the 1 representation. Okay. So you see that this should be familiar to you, physics, those who have studied physics, that in the theory of addition of angular momentum, you have done this addition of angular momentum. J1 is one angular momentum, J2 is another angular momentum, generator of the rotation. And then you just talk about this addition of angular momentum J1 plus J2, okay, which gives you some capital J or something like that. So you have seen this, right? This physics students, you have seen this addition of angular momentum earlier. This equation, that I have written here? Have you done this addition of angular momentum in your quantum mechanics course? Say yes or no. Akshay,
Yes, sir, we did it. Yes, sir, we did it.
you remember this equation, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, not that equation. We started from the equation you have written in the last slide. This happens with the addition angle. This we
Which
have.
one? This one?
No. Just after that.
After that?
No.
This one? This one?
Last. Yeah.
This one, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, the thing is that you have seen this because addition of angular momentum 1 and 2 gives you some capital J. This you have seen, right? In your
Yes,
addition
sir.
angular-
Yes, sir.
Did you realize that when you say that you add 1 and J2, these are two different representation, right? So one could be 2-dimensional and one could be 3-dimensional. So how
Yes,
do you
sir.
add these two? How do you add these two? So because it's a 2x2 matrix, one is 3x2, 3x3 matrix. So what is the meaning of this additional angular momentum when you write it this way? So what you essentially do, you appropriately multiply by the identity operator of appropriate dimension so that the dimensions match appropriately and then only you can add. Otherwise, there is no meaning of adding a 2x2 matrix with a 3x3 matrix, right? So that is, there you have suppressed, when you write this J equal to J1 plus J2, you have suppressed this Kronecker deltas and the indices, etc. And then this way you write it like this. So this is essentially the idea. So this is like, suppose it's a 2-dimensional representation. You multiply, delta is the identity matrix, element wise I have written. It's a 3x3 identity matrix then. For example, you are adding a representation, irreducible representation of 2-dimension with multiplying 2-dimension and 3-dimension. So generator wise they are adding. But when you add, they appropriately match the dimensions. So if it is a 2-dimensional representation, this is a 3x3 identity matrix. And if it is a 3-dimensional representation, then it's a 2x2 identity matrix. Okay. And then only this equation can be written. So this equation, when you write the addition of angular momentum, this is written suppressing all these things. And this is written in this sense actually. So that is what I have written here. This is what happens with addition of angular momentum in quantum mechanics. JA1 cross 2 equal to JA1 plus JA2 by suppressing the indices and ignoring the Kronecker deltas, which is just identity operators on the appropriate space. So if you just do explicit calculation, it will be much clearer. We'll try to explain as much as possible. So remember that this is a very crucial result that we'll be using, that the generator in the product representation, the tensor product representation, is actually sum of the generators of the individual representation in this sense, that they are multiplied by the appropriate identity operators in the appropriate space. Okay, so this is the crucial result that we will be using.
Sir, can you
Yes.
Can you explain this again? Why
Yes.
how they are
Sorry?
different dimension? How I am adding them?
No, that's what I said. That you just look at the operator tensor product representation acting on the states. States I have already described. The tensor product states are like this, and then we see that they can transform like this. Now we want to look at how the generators actually. What happens when you look at the tensor product states, tensor product representation? What happens to the generators? Now you know that this group elements or the group representation can be written as the exponential of the generators. And if you want to look at the generator, how generators transform, then you have to look at the infinitesimal transformation near the identity, so that you can bring down the generator because it's on the top of the exponential. So that's why I've looked at the near the identity, the transform alpha is the infinitesimal parameter here, and looked at the transformation on the tensor product states. And then inserting this complete set of states, I can write it like this. Okay. And then I already defined that whenever you have a D1 cross 2 tensor product representation, it is essentially, this is the definition, product of each individual representation like this. Okay. So D1G can also be written as in terms of the C2 generators of that particular dimension. T2G can also be written in terms of the exponential of the C2 generators in that particular dimension. And if you just look at near the identity, so this quantity can also be written as jy. Then this is this d1g and this is d2g near the identity. Okay, just expanding the exponential. Identity plus I alpha, the first term only. Then you take the product of these two. So then to take the product, there is a term which is proportional to alpha a, and you compare whatever you get from this product with this whatever is written here. Okay, and comparing these two, you see that the coefficient of alpha a here is j1 cross 2 g jyix, and coefficient of alpha a in this product is essentially ja into delta yx plus ji into delta yx plus j2yx delta ji. This is the coefficient of alpha a. So this comparing this coefficient of alpha a, what you get is essentially this. Okay, that this quantity is equal to this quantity. So that is in terms of the generator. When you talk about the tensor product representation, generators are adding. Okay, so this shows that when you multiply the representation, the generators add in the sense shown just above. Here I have shown in what sense. So the appropriately you match the dimension and add. Okay, otherwise there is no meaning of adding. So you understand these steps here. I just compared the coefficients of alpha a here.
How the dimensions we are matching to the last?
Sorry.
How we are matching the dimensions? If
Yes,
J1
dimension. Yeah. So you see, it's very easy. If this step is okay, then it's not very difficult to understand. This is written in terms of the element. Okay. If you don't write in terms of the element, right, matrix wise, what will happen is that the J1 cross 2 is equal to J1. Okay. Then direct product with identity matrix of the other dimension. Okay. So if this is a two-dimensional thing, then it is a 3 cross 3 identity matrix. Okay. And if it is a three-dimensional identity matrix 3 cross 3, then it's a two-dimensional representation. If you take the direct product, what will be the dimension? Dimension will be 6, both the cases. Okay. And you know the tensor product representation of a 2-dimension and 3-dimension representation is also a 6-dimensional representation. So the dimensions are matching. Okay. So this is delta yx. What is delta yx? Yx is so there are two different states, right? One is ji, I goes from 1 to n, this is m dimension, and yx, this is x goes to 1 to n dimension. And you are taking the direct product here. Okay. So this is suppose this is m is 2 and n is 3. This is a 2 by 2 matrix, and this is a 3 by 3 identity matrix, and you are taking the tensor product of these two. So this will be a 6 cross 6 matrix. And if it is a 3-dimensional matrix, then it's a 2-dimensional, I mean, you understand what I mean to say, opposite, 3 cross 3 identity matrix. So if you take the tensor product, it will be a 6 cross 6. Both the terms are 6 cross 6 matrix here, so that you can add them. Okay, understand?
This is one thing that
Yes.
That means I can't put the delta ji in the second term to the right. I have to keep it to the left.
Yes, that is the way. Yeah, that is the way it is coming. Actually, that is the way it is coming.
Okay, because dimension won't. Okay.
Yes, that is the way it is coming. The way you have written it like that.
Fine, that's fine. Okay.
Okay. Fine. So this is very crucial. Remember that. Those who are studying physics, you have seen this addition of angular momentum. Remember that. I mean, this is essentially this is the sense of writing this. Okay. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. Remember that. So now, if you see that, if you now, so what we are doing, if you just take this generator of the tensor product representation, act on the state, say jx. Okay, jx can be written as j time direct product x, like that. So what will happen? Since this can be written as j1 direct product delta yx plus delta ji direct product j2 yx, this is easy to show that essentially this quantity can be written as j1 acting on j and direct product with the state x plus j direct product with j2 acting on x. Okay. So remember, j1 acts on the states I or j, and j2 acts on the states y or x, whatever. Okay. So essentially this equation tells me, because this is just identity matrix, this is just telling me that this tensor product representation acting on the tensor product states is essentially this, that JA acting on first state J and then direct product with X plus J and then J2 acting, direct product with J2 acting on X. Okay. So this is again another important relation equation that you should keep in mind. And once you have this is for all the generators. Okay, so A corresponds to SU2 have three generators, right? A goes from 1, 2, and 3. So this is for all the three. So this is the J1 gives you the J1 generator in the tensor product representation. J2 gives you J2 generator in the tensor product representation. J3 gives you the diagonal generator in the tensor product representation. Similarly, this is the A equal to 1 corresponds to the generator in J1 in this representation, similarly J2 in this representation, similarly J1 in this representation, and so on. So this is A is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, remember that. Now, once you have this equation here, it is very easy to see immediately that the J3 values actually add, okay, in the tensor product representation. And that's very interesting to see. We are working, remember, the way everything is developed, we are working in the basis in which J3 is diagonal. So we diagonalize J3 in the beginning. Okay. So since J3 is diagonal, the above equation for J3, for the generator J3 looks very, very simple. Right? So remember this Jx, all these states that we defined here. So in the context of SU2 representation, you remember the states are labeled by this highest value in the representation. Okay. So for one representation, I call it J1 and the M values, okay, all the M values. So J1, M1 labels the state, okay, M1, 1 corresponds to the representation 1, irreducible representation 1, which could be spin half, for example. 2 corresponds to irreducible representation 2, which would be spin 1, for example, okay, or spin 3 half, whatever. I just write here as 1 and 2 representation. These are irreducible representation, okay. So the states are labeled like this: J1, M1, and J2, M2. Okay. So do you follow the way I have written the states here? This J and X. J and X are for the SU2 representation. The states are labeled like this. Is this okay? Because the notations are a bit confusing, that I understand. If it is okay, please tell me. You remember the states were labeled like this, J and M. So J is the highest value in the irreducible representation, highest J3 value in the irreducible representation, and M is the J3 value. Okay, M goes from plus J to minus J. So that is the way you represent the states for an irreducible representation. So that's what I have done here. So this J here corresponds to the states in the representation 1, and I denote that as in SU2 case we do it J1 M1, and X is the states SU2 states in the for the representation the states corresponding to representation 2 in SU2, so they are labeled as J2 M2. Is this notation clear, Akshay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's clear.
Oh, this is clear. This is clear. Very good.
So, moreover, we used it in quantum mechanics in same notation.
You have used it in quantum mechanics, but still I wanted to ensure that everything is consistent. Okay. So very good. So now this J3 acting on 1 cross 2, J1 M1, J2 M2, what will happen? You know J1 cross 2, J3 1 cross 2 can be written as J3 1 acting on J, then X remains, and plus J3 2 acting on X. So what will happen here? It will be like this quantity is essentially J1 acting on J1 M1, that will give you M1, J1 M1, and then J2 M2 remains, and then plus J1 M1, J2 acting on J2 M2. So M2, J2 M2, then J1 M1, J2 M2 remains. So if you do that, if you just use this equation for J3, just use this equation for J3, and for J, you remember I have assumed it is SU2 state J1 M1, and for X, I have written it as J2 M2. Okay, so this is like J3 1 cross 2 acting on this state gives me M1 plus M2, this quantity. Okay. So this is J3 is also diagonal here with the eigenvalue M1 plus M2. That means what? The J3 values add. the J3 values of the tensor product states are just the sums of the J3 values of the factors. Okay, so this is again very crucial while writing down the states for the tensor product representation. That the J3 values of the tensor product states are just the sums of the J3 values of the factors. Okay, so this is important, and we shall use this in the highest weight construction of the tensor product representation to decompose it into irreducible representation. So what we plan to do is essentially, suppose we have a irreducible representation spin half that is 2-dimensional and spin 1 3-dimensional. You construct the tensor product representation, which is 2 times 3 is 6-dimensional, and we want to see this 6-dimensional representation, how it separates in a block diagonal form into what kind of representation. Is it 3 plus 3, or is it 4 plus 2, or is it 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, like 6 1-dimensional, or it is something else. Okay, so this is what we want to see, how it breaks into the 6-dimensional representation, how it breaks into a different irreducible representation. Okay, so this is the program actually. This is what we want to understand, whether it is 3 plus 2, 3, or it is 4 plus 2, or it is 6 ones, or 3 twos, or whatever. So that we want to understand. So let us try to look at that. So, but remember the tensor product representation, the J3 value that. So if you want to find out the tensor product, the J3 generator in the tensor product representation, you know that the eigenvalues of J3 for the tensor product states are just the sum of the eigenvalues of the component J3 values. So this is important. So let us take an example so that it will be clear to you all. So let us consider, for example, the tensor product of a spin half and spin 1 representation. So this, let us try to understand that. The spin 1 representation and spin half representation, let us try to understand the tensor product of a spin half and spin 1 representation. So we shall use the highest weight, it should be highest weight. I have written highest procedure, it should be highest weight procedure to decompose the product space into irreducible representation. We want to see what kind of irreducible representations appear in the product space. Okay. Now you see, if it is a spin half representation, how many states are there in the spin half representation?
Two states.
Sorry? What did you say? I could not.
So it will be 2.
2, yes, it will be 2. And for spin 1 representation?
3 states.
3 states, right? Now, the way we have denoted the state for the spin half, what are the states? Can you just name them? I mean, the way we write it. Just tell me the 2 states. How do you write them?
Half, plus half, and plus half minus half.
Correct. For spin 1?
For this spin 1, it will be 1, minus 1, 1, 0, 1 plus 1.
Correct. So it is 1, 1, 1, 0, and 1 minus 1. So 2 states there, 3 states there, and you know, if you take the product of these 2 states, these 2 representations, there will be 6 states corresponding to these 2 and 3. Right. Now, you see that if there are 3 states here and 2 states there, there is a unique highest weight state. And what is that unique highest weight state? Highest weight is what? Weight means what? J3 value, right? And the J3 value, there is a unique state, and that corresponds to this. J3 values add, you remember, we already showed. So that corresponds to a tensor product of half with 1, 1, right? Because there the J3 values will add 1 plus half, that will give me 3 half. And that is the highest J3 value in the tensor product representation, right? You cannot have more than that. And that highest weight state is unique here. There is no other state with J3 value 3 half, right? So there is a unique highest weight state, and that I write as in the same notation, that the highest J3 value and the J3 value. So that is 3 by 2, 3 by 2. And that comes from the tensor product of this half with 1, 1. Okay. So this is the highest weight state. Now, how do you construct the rest of the spin 3 half state? So there is a highest weight state with spin 3 half. Rest of the highest weight state, rest of the spin 3 half states, how you can calculate? You know, we have studied it yesterday. You have to apply the lowering operators to both sides. Right? Now you apply lowering operator. You apply the lowering operator. So 3 by 2, 3 by 2. So that is equal to this. So you have to apply the lowering operator J minus corresponding to the tensor product state. Okay. So can you tell me what will be the, in this context, what will be the dimension of this lowering operator if you look at it, think of it about in terms of some matrix? What is the definition of the lowering operator that I provided yesterday? Tell me something. How do you define the lowering operator? Showing me. Ruksha? Akshay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Lowers
Sorry?
actually lowers the n values from the highest, I mean, from the
Sorry?
higher n value to the lower one.
Sorry?
The
No, I'm
lower
asking, how do you define this J minus? What is the definition?
So 1 by root 2 J1 minus I J2.
Very good. So 1 by root 2, that's what I'm asking. 1 by root 2 J1 minus I J2, right? Very good. So now tell me that, so similarly for the tensor product representation, you can similarly define this J minus. I am asking what will be, if you think of this J minus as a matrix, what will be the dimension of this J minus in the tensor product representation in this special example that we are considering?
6 dimensional?
It will be 6 dimensional. That's what I'm saying, asking simple questions. It's a 6 dimensional matrix, right? Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So it's a 6 dimensional. So just remember that, because sometimes I'll ask this because just to see that you are following everything. Simple question. So this J minus, you act on this 3 by 2, 3 by 2. So that means this acts on this half 1 1, because that is this equals to this. Okay. Now what you have to do, you remember yesterday we got this result that J minus acting on Jm is, J minus is lowering operator, so it will change m to m minus 1. So it will be nm jm m minus 1 with nm equal to 1 by root 2 square root of j plus m into j minus m plus 1. Okay. And so using this result and using equation 2 is this. Remember the tensor product acting on this state gives essentially the first representation acting on the corresponding state, direct product with this x plus j into this. Okay, you know this. So please write down this equation. If you are not writing notes here, just write down this equation and please write down this equation. I'll send all these notes, but just you have to do some exercise now. Just it will take 5-10 minutes. Yes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Have you written down this expression? Yes. And just write down these two results written towards the end. J minus acting on Jm is n, this thing with n is nm is given by this. Have you written it down? Just write it down or keep it. I'll keep this slide here. Now use this result and apply this J minus on this tensor product state. Okay. You calculate these coefficients, etc. Use this relation, this equation A, and tell me what you get. Applying this J minus on this product state, using these two relation result and also using this result. Okay, just tell me what you get. So let me tell you. So J minus half cross 1 acting on this state will be what? First j half minus j minus half, acting on this half half, 1 1 will remain as it is, plus half half will remain as it is, j1 minus, acting on this 1 1. Okay, first step is this. Clear? Then j minus half, acting on half half, you can evaluate it using this relation. And j minus 1, acting on 1 1, you can again evaluate with this relation. And you will get some number and some linear combination of the states. So you tell me what you get. Okay.
So 1 by root 2 half minus half plus 1 0.
No, it will be linear combination. Just
হ্যাঁ স্যার মানে 1 by root 2 half comma minus half
okay.
plus 1 comma 0 মানে kate.
Okay. Let me see what I got. So it should be 1 by root 2 half minus half. Then 1 1 will remain because that is static for this operation.
Oh yes sir, I have forgot to write this. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said, that you write this equation. Otherwise, it will not be correct. Okay, you write this equation. So it will be 1 by root 2 half minus half, 1 1 will be static, and then half half, and then 1 1 because the coefficient comes out.
Yes sir, I have got this sir.
And on the left hand side, if you just do the same thing, if you just do it on the left hand side here, then what will happen? Same thing you can apply here also. And if you apply it with on the left hand side, what you get, just tell me. So the state will be, kate will be 3 by 2 half. And what will be the coefficient?
Root 3 by root 2.
Yes. So if you just do that, it's straightforward. So it will be root 3 by 2. So this will be, the equation will be root 3 by 2, 3 half half equal to root over 1 by 2 half minus half 1 1 plus 1 by 2 1 by 2 1 0. So from here you can get that 3 by 2 half equal to, just multiplying all these things, root over 1 by 3 half minus half 1 1 plus root over 2 by 3 half 1 0. Okay. So 3 by 2 was this, and 3 by 2 in terms of the components, this is the tensor product, and 3 by 2 half is a linear combination of these two. As you can see, the J3 value is that, so 1 minus half will give you half, and 0 plus half will also give you half. So this 3 by 2 half should be linear combination of these two states. The appropriate coefficient you should find out, and that coefficient comes out to be root over 1 by 3 here and root over 2 by 3 here. You know that these coefficients are called what?
Clebsch-Gordon coefficient.
These are Clebsch-Gordon coefficients, right? Yeah, these are called the Clebsch-Gordon coefficients. Fine. So 3 by 2 half you got. And similarly, you can apply again a lowering operator on the left hand side and on the right hand side. So again, you can continue this process just using the results that you used here, this quantity and this equation. Okay, if you just do that, you can, from 3 by 2 half, if you just apply a lowering operator, you will get 3 by 2 minus half. And then the Clebsch-Gordon coefficient will come out with this. And you can continue only up to 3 by 2 minus 3 by 2. And then 3 by 2 minus 3 by 2 is will come out to this. Okay, so these are all the 4 states corresponding to speed by 2. 4 states are what? 3 by 2, 3 by 2, 3 by 2 half, 3 by 2 minus half, and 3 by 2 minus 3 by 2. All the 4 states comes out to be this. Now you know that.
Sir?
Yes.
Sir, I have one doubt in the calculation. Can you show the previous slide once?
Yes.
The next one actually.
This one?
So the next one.
Next one, this one?
So next one.
Yeah, this one. Yes, tell
So in
me.
this first line, the first term on the right hand side we are getting by evaluating j half minus on ket half half. Right. So j equals to half, m equals to half. So we get the ket half minus half. That's fine. But in the yes, sir.
Yes, tell me.
So in the coefficient is 1 by root 2 under root j plus m, j minus m plus 1. So if j and m both are half, so j minus m plus 1, it should give 0.
Which one?
Oh, sorry, nothing.
No.
It's resolved, sir. It's resolved.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it is. It should be correct actually. Okay. So just verify. These are simple algebra. This is nothing. I mean, very special thing. Okay, this is maybe some algebraic mistake you made. Okay, so I think it is okay. Did you get the correct number?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. While speaking, only I understood what mistake I made.
Okay. No, it's okay. So now you see that, so there must be, we know that for the spin half representation, we had 2 states, and for the spin 1 representation, 3 states. So total 6 states. We have already got 4 states for the spin 3 half. So this means there are 2 more states remaining. Okay. And the way I mentioned in the very beginning, the states are constructed, they are all orthonormal states, orthogonal to each other. Okay. So the remaining 2 states must be orthogonal to the states shown above, and we have to find them out. Okay. Now, in order to find out these 2 orthogonal states, let us assume that one of the 2 states is just, so remember that one thing, that we have 6 states. Okay. Now, so the states were half minus half, and 1 1 1 0 1 minus 1. Okay. Now the highest state was 3 by 2, and for the 3 by 2 we got all the states: 3 by 2, 3 by 2, 3 by 2 half, 3 by 2 minus half, 3 by 2 minus 3 by 2. Next highest J3 value will be what? Corresponding to all those 6 states, what will be the next highest J3 value? 3 by 2 I have exhausted.
1 by 2.
1 by 2. So the half will be the next highest J3 value. That's right. Absolutely. So that's why I have to find out what is that orthogonal states corresponding orthogonal to all the 4 states that I have considered. So I just assume that one of the 2 states remaining, one of the 2 states is a linear combination of these 2 states. Okay, because it should be J3 should be half. So there are 2 possibilities. One is minus half plus 1, and other is half plus 0. These are the only 2 possibilities. So I say that the coefficients are A and B. So I just assume that the remaining 2 states, one is A half minus half 1 1 plus B half 1 0. Okay, and use the orthonormality condition. So use the orthonormality condition. Let us consider this, because this is also half minus half 1 1 and half 1 0. So I just use the orthonormality condition with this, orthogonality condition with this. So what you will get this equation. You will get A by root 3 plus B by 2 root 3 equal to 0. If you just take the orthogonality with this state, this with this, so this is 0, and orthonormality will give you A square plus B square equal to 1. Okay. Now that means what? That means you can solve for this, and you get from these 2 equations that A equal to root over 2 by 3 and B equal to minus root over 1 by 3. Okay. So the orthogonal state that you find is root over 2 by 3 half minus half 1 1 and minus root over 1 by 3 half 1 0. And similarly, the other state should be also orthogonal to all these states, and in a similar way you can find out. I am not doing the algebra here. You can find out root over 1 by 3 half minus half 1 0 minus root over 2 by 3 half 1 minus 1. So this is the way you got all the 4 states of the tensor product representation, and in terms of the component states, and with the appropriate coefficients there that we have.
Sir, in the last
Now,
step,
yeah.
this sign is not unique, right? I mean,
Yes,
there can be a factor
absolutely
of minus 1.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. You see, the sign is not unique, as you can see from here. The sign is not unique, but the relative sign here is the same always. Okay, relative
Yeah.
sign will not change. That's because you are getting it from. So you have, what you do, you just I have explained it here, that you just, so that means what, this should be the half states, right? So this should be your half state, and then if you have the half state, you apply J minus again, and from there you get half minus half. So these are the 2 states that you get. So this is the half and this is the half minus half. Now you see that as I said, the sign is not unique for the coefficients, as Rupsa pointed out, and so that is absolutely correct. But only thing is that the relative sign between these are same always, because you get one from the other using the J minus lowering operator. Yeah. So that means the relative sign is always fixed, but the sign of the coefficients is not unique. You are right. Absolutely. So now you see that we have used up all the states, 6 states since total we had. So the process terminates. We have used so we have got all the states. Okay. So that means what, we have decomposed the tensor product states into states of the irreducible representation. One corresponds to spin 3/2. So spin 3/2 means there are 4 states. Okay. So it's a 4-dimensional irreducible representation. and one corresponds to the spin half. That means two states. That corresponds to two-dimensional irreducible representation. Okay, and this is symbolically represented as 2 direct product. This 2 cross 3 is equal to 4 plus 2. So the way it will break up is essentially 2 cross 3. The tensor product state will break up into a 4-dimensional representation corresponding to spin 3 half and a 2-dimensional representation corresponding to spin half. So did you actually did this spin half and spin 1 combination in your class, in physics class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Kabir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
And you realize that it's a 4-dimensional and a 2-dimensional representation? It breaks into that. Or you just
So we just calculated the coefficient because that
just
time we didn't know
calculated.
about representation and
Yeah.
all this.
That's right. So now you see that it's a tensor product of 2 cross 3. So symbolically it's written as 2 cross 3 equal to 4 plus 2. Okay, so this is the thing. And similarly, you can also calculate, say, 2-dimensional representation, which is a 2-dimensional representation that you have done many times, I'm sure, in quantum mechanics. Okay, and that gives me what? 2 times 2, 2-dimensional representation will give you what? Tensor product of 2-dimensional representation.
Spin 1 and spin 0.
That's right. So it will give you a 3-dimensional representation and a singlet representation, spin 0. Okay, so it will give you spin 0 representation. Okay. That's right. Very good. So now let us. So we will try to combine different representation because in physics you may need it. Okay, so all the time you don't just want to see that if you combine different representation, find the tensor product representation and what are the possible irreducible representation when it breaks into irreducible representation. So there is a pictorial way of decomposition. You just want to see what is the breaking, okay, chain. So you don't want to calculate all the coefficients all the time. First, you want to see what is happening. If you take product of 2 representation, tensor product, then how it breaks. Okay, so there is a pictorial way of decomposition, and that's what we will try to see. What it says. So you can pictorially find out the decomposition of SU2 tensor product representation into irreducible representation. Okay. So remember that the group has only one diagonal generator. We consider it to be J3. Okay. So each irreducible representation we will consider, will characterize it by a straight line segment with points on it denoting the J3 values. J3 values are denoted by AM. Remember, small m. Okay. And this is called a weight diagram. Remember, we said that the J3 values are called weight. Okay. So I'll show you the picture later. Let me just describe it first. So each irreducible representation will draw a straight line. Okay. And on the straight line, at the two ends of these straight lines, say for example, I just denote them as say half and minus half. The J3 values corresponding to spin half representation. Okay. So on the right hand side I write say half, and on the left hand side I write at the end, okay, minus half. So straight line can be, so irreducible representations are characterized by a straight line segment with points on it denoting the J3 values. Once I show you the picture, it will be clear, but let me describe it. Now, the entries of J3, that is the eigenvalues of J3 are called weights, I mentioned that. And we know that raising operator and lowering operator, what they do, they take you from one weight to the other, right? It take you from one m value to the other m value. Okay, raising operator increases it by 1 unit, and this lowering operator lowers it by 1 unit, right? So J3, the J plus J minus, the raising and lowering operator takes you from, along the line, takes you from one J3 value to the other J3 value. Okay, and J3 values are called weights. Now, this kind of representation pictorially, this tensor product makes more sense for higher SU1 group, SU3, SU5 and all that. Okay. But we will not be able to discuss because of time constraints. For SU2, it's not that important, but let us still discuss it. Okay. You will find it interesting. We already learned that in a product representation, the eigenvalues of the diagonal generator, that is J3, okay, in the product representation is additive. So the eigenvalue of the J31 and J32 will be added to get the eigenvalue of the J3 in the product representation. Okay? They are additive. That also you know. So these are the weight diagrams. Okay? So for example, J equal to half, spin half representation. This is the J3 direction. I say this is plus up and this is minus up. This is a weight diagram corresponding to spin half representation. Similarly, for spin 1, the weight diagram is just 1, 0, minus 1. And for spin 3 half, it is just 3 half, half, minus half, and minus 3. So these are called the weight diagrams. And you know that if you apply J minus here, it will take you here to here to here. If you apply J plus, it will take you this way, increase. And similarly here and similarly here. So how do you find the decomposition of a product representation using this pictorial method? So suppose you want to combine two representations of dimensionality 2J1 plus 1 and 2J2 plus 1. So J1 and J2 are the spin J representations, J1 representation and spin J2 representation. Like for example, J1 say half and J1, J2 1, or say J1 1, J2 3 half, like that. So you know that if J1 is the spin J1 representation, the number of states is 2J1 plus 1, and similarly 2J2 plus 1. The way you find the tensor product representation, the decomposition of the tensor product representation is performed as follows. So you first draw the weight diagram of the first representation. So suppose you are combining, say half, two halves, okay, half with half, half cross half. Half is two states, so it is also written as 2 cross 2, or you write sometimes as half cross half. So you first draw the weight diagram of the first representation. So first half you write the weight diagram like this, and indicate the position of the weights like this, and we'll see the figures on the next page. Okay. Then what you do, you locate the center of mass. That is the midpoint. Essentially, look at the midpoint of the second weight diagram. Just a pictorial method, okay? And put it exactly on top of the weights of the first representation. So, take two representation, two spin half, like this weight diagrams you write side by side. Now, locate the midpoint of the second and put it on the top, just top of the weights of the first representation, one here and one here. So if I show you the diagram, you like this. 2 cross 2. 2 cross 2, you have a 2-dimensional representation times a 2-dimensional representation. You take the second diagram, you locate its center of mass, this position of midpoint, and you took the take the second diagram, locate its center of mass, and put it exactly on top of the weight of the first diagram here, and the other weight of the first diagram. So these are the strategies. Now it is easy to see how many states are possible. You know that. So that's what I have written here. In the second representation has 2J2 plus 1 states or weights, whatever you call. Then you put it once on all 2J1 states of the first representation. So I have taken this second state and put it once on top of each of the weight of the first representation. The total number of states will be what? It will be, for each weight you get, you put 2J plus 1 state. So it is 2J plus 1 times 2J1 plus 1 times 2J2 plus 1 number of states. So this is the number of states in the combined representation. Now starts from the highest weight of the combined representation, and this must be unique. Its value should be J1. J1 is the spin J, okay, or the highest value of J3, and J2 correspondingly J2 is the highest value of J3, spin J2. So highest state must be unique, and its J3 value will be J1 plus J2. You tick off all the weights of this representation, starting from J1 plus J2 and decreasing by 1 unit up to minus J1 minus J2. So you tick all the weights, so that gives you one representation, and the remaining states, okay, whatever you have, you just repeat the steps with the remaining states, still we are left with nothing. Okay. So just look at this here. So I have put the second state, the midpoint of the second state here and midpoint of the second state here. Because there are two weight here, so I have put it twice. And you see this is half, this is minus half, this is half, this is minus half, this is half, this is minus half. So highest weight is half plus half, that is 1. Okay. So you start with 1. How many states will you will get? From j to minus j, so 1 to minus 1. So 1, 0, minus 1. So that will give you a spin 1 representation here. And how many states remaining? For each one you have 2. So for 2 you have 4 states. So 3 is already exhausted, 1, 0, minus 1. There is 1 state remaining. And you can easily find out that the J3 value of that state is 0. Because you see here, 1 plus half, half plus half is 1. Then half minus half is 0. Then this is minus half minus 1. And no, sorry, this is half 1. This is half minus half 0. And this is minus half again 0. And this is minus half minus 1. So 1, 0, minus 1 you have taken here. And 1, 0 is remaining. And so that is this state. So this one singlet 0 is the singlet state, okay, which does not transform at all under SU2. So that is only one state there. And there is a 3 state here corresponding to spin 1. So 2 plus 2 breaks up into 3 plus 1. This is the most simple example and simplest example, and you have seen it many times in physics. So this is also written as 2 spin half giving you a spin 1 and a spin 0. Okay, so half plus half is 1 plus 0, or sometimes you write it as 2 plus 2 equal to 3 plus 1. Okay. So this is a simple example, and the example that we have done here just now explicitly written down the Clebsch-Gordan coefficient, that also you can see. So this is a spin half representation, 2 states, and spin 1 representation, 3 states. So you just take both way you can do it. You can just take this and put 3 this thing here, or just take this and put 2 this thing here, or just take 3 and put 3 spin halves there. Okay, so I've just taken this second representation and put the first representation on locating the midpoint of this first. I put it on top of this each thing. So for each you have 2 states. So there for 3 you have 6 states. And then you see the highest state is here it is 1 and here it is half. So 1 plus half is 3 by 2. So 3 by 2 to minus 3 by 2, 4 states. So that is a 4 here. And remaining 2 states are there, which are half and minus half. So you get a 2. So 2 plus 3 gives you a 4 plus 2. Okay. So it's also written in terms of spin as half cross 1 equal to 3 by 2 plus half. Okay, so in terms of spin, this is also written like this. So this is the pictorial way of decomposition. Now you can find out more complicated and decomposition. So these are simple ones that you can easily find out, but others are also very simple for SU2. These are more meaningful for higher SUNs like SU3 or SU5 and things like that. So that we will not be able to discuss. I will give you some exercise to calculate this kind of decomposition of the tensor product representation, for some bigger representation using pictorial method or whatever way you find it comfortable.
Sir, can we find out?
Yes.
Can we find out Clebsch-Gordan coefficients using?
No, that's it. Yes, that's it. That is a good point. So that is another thing. Pictorial way of doing this only tells you how many states you are there in the irreducible representation. You cannot do the linear combination here. Okay. So for a given weight, you can have linear combination of different states with the same weight. Okay, and then only you can find out the coefficients, etc. Clebsch-Gordan coefficient. So that you cannot do here. This is just to see, as I said in the beginning, this is just to see how it breaks. Okay. So just to see how it breaks, but if you want to do more involved calculation to find out coefficients, then you have to do the way I have done it using the highest weight construction, at least for the SU2, and then for other SUNs, etc. there are other methods. So, but well, that is a very good method for all that. But as you go higher and higher in SUNs, it will be more and more complicated. For SU3 is simple, but that is the only way to find out the Clebsch-Gordan coefficients. But this is just to look at how it breaks into different irreducible representation. If you just want to know, suppose you want to combine a 4-dimensional representation with another 4-dimensional representation, how it breaks. Okay, because the thing is that why we do it, we want to find out if there is a singlet representation. Singlet meaning that if there is a representation which does not transform at all under SU2. Okay, so generally you want to construct Lagrangian which is invariant under this symmetry transformations. Okay, Invariant meaning it is a singlet or it's a scalar. Okay, it doesn't transform at all. So you want to see in your Lagrangian term what kind of representation you combine so that you get a singlet. Okay, so this is the so this is the pictorial way. You know that suppose you combine 2 with 3, you don't get a singlet, but if you combine 2 with 2, you get one singlet. Things like that. So you want to know what you get if you combine 2, you get a 3 or not. 3 is sometimes important like that. So first you want to see what is happening, how it breaks. Then, if you want to do more involved calculations, then you use the method that I described, the highest weight construction, and get the K-Gordon coefficient. Okay. So that's the idea. But this is a nice way to look at the decomposition, because sometimes if you just take
can you
products of yes,
Sir.
can I
Sir,
repeat
can
what?
you repeat the second step that you were saying? I didn't get that.
Oh, second step meaning here.
Yes, sir, that one.
Oh, second step is so first you take the weight diagram of this and look at the midpoint of this weight diagram and look put it exactly on top of each of the weights here. Okay, so you see that for each weight here there are 2 states, so there will be 3 times 2, 6 states. Okay, now you find out the highest weight. You see this is half as I have shown here, and this is 1. This is 1. So when you combine half and 1, you get 3 by 2. So you know that the highest weight state is 3 by 2. And then if you use the Loaric operator, remember 3 by 2 can have 4 states. So 3 by 2 half minus 3 by 2. They will all come from here. So like this is 3 by 2. This will be 1 minus half is half. Then this will be 0 plus half is half. This will be 0 minus half is minus half. This will be minus 1 plus half is minus half, and this will be minus 1 minus half is minus 3 by 2. So you just collect, starting from 3 by 2, you just collect all the states like 3 by 2, half, minus 3 by 2. So these are these 4 states here on this weight diagram. So this is the 4. And then remaining only 2 states, because total state is 6. So only 2 states, and you can easily find out that they are just half and minus half. So it's a 2. So 2 plus 3, it breaks into 4 plus 2. So now if I ask you to say multiply 3 cross 3, what will happen? Can you quickly tell me what will happen to 3 cross 3? How it breaks? Quickly tell me, doing this pictorial thing on your notebook.
Sir, 5 plus 1.
5 plus?
1.
No, but 3 cross 3 gives you how many states?
Spins
5 cross 3 cross
it
1.
will be 5 plus 4 plus sir, from that till 1.
5 plus 4, 5 plus 3 plus 1.
Who said 5 plus 3 plus 1?
Raj, yes.
Yes. So that is the correct.
So it will be 5 plus 3 plus 1. Yeah.
Yes, total state is 9, no? So you have to somehow get 9. If you just say 5
Yes,
plus
sir,
1,
yes,
it's
sir.
only
Yes.
6. So what Raj said is correct. It should be 5 plus 3 plus 1. So that is the way 2, 3 will break. Okay. 5 plus. Similarly, you can find out other decomposition also. But let me just, since I'll not be able to teach you SU3, and which is more involved compared to SU2. SU2 is more important because SU2 is applied everywhere in physics, quantum mechanics, quantum metaphysics, field theory, everything, particle. But SU3 is usually used only in particle physics. Although I know that there are applications of SU3 in condensed matter system, but not that much. So SU3 is mainly used in particle physics, and those who are not going to do particle physics, you may not want to study SU3. Only from mathematical interest, of course, you want to learn, because that's richer in structure, SU3, and higher SUNs. But I won't be able to do it because I don't have time. But the thing is that, let me just mention here that you remember for the SU2, 2 is the fundamental representation, right? 2-dimensional spin ups, 2-dimensional representation. Okay. And you remember I said for SUN, fundamental representation is denoted by what? Remember, it's there in the note. For SUN, the fundamental representation is n-dimensional. Okay, so it's it's written as a n, and the conjugate representation is denoted by n bar. It's all written, you see. Okay. So for SU3, what is the dimension of the fundamental representation? It is a 3 cross 3 unitary
3.
matrix, right? Yes, it's a 3. Yeah, fundamental representation is 3. But for the case of SU3, and 3 of SU3, 3 is the fundamental of SU3, and 3 is the spin 1 representation of SU2. Okay. So 3 cross 3 in SU2, the way it breaks, 3 cross 3 in SU3 will not break in the same way, because the breaking pattern of 3 cross 3 in SU3 is different already. And as I said, 2 and 2 bar, they are equivalent in SU2. But if you just take 3 and 3 bar, that will also give you something else, some other decomposition. So remember that 3, when I say 3 here, 3 is the 3 of SU2, not 3 of SU3. Okay. So 3 of SU3 will give you some other decomposition. But anyways, remember that this pictorial way is very fast way of getting the decomposition, and you can do any kind of tensor product and find out the decomposition this way. So this is where I will stop. I mean, because of time constraint, I will stop our discussion on Lie groups Lie algebra. This is just the starting point, let me tell you. And the main topics are all after this. And unfortunately, I cannot continue because I have to teach some other things also. And for that also, I don't have much time. You know, what happened this year is that many holidays, and then this kind of online teaching is also a bit slow sometimes. Many holidays are there during my classes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I missed 4 or 5 classes, I remember. So that covers a lot of material, unfortunately. And so I'll stop here. But
So what will be things that we will miss?
You will miss many things, like for example SU3, and if you, as soon as you go to SU3, there are many other concepts like roots, and these weight diagrams will be more complicated, and other things will come in the representation of SU3, things like that. Okay. So, but as I said, it is important only for those for mathematical interest or for those who are doing, say, particle physics. Okay, otherwise it's not that important. But SU2 is definitely very, very important. So I wanted to complete up to a certain level. So this will be your syllabus for the group theory for the end semester exam. Okay. But I'll give you 2 sets of homework problem after this. So maybe today or tomorrow. And I'll give you sufficient time to complete those. Okay. One will be for your practice because they are straightforward. You can look at the answers in Georgia's book or something like that. And one maybe you can submit, and you will learn more about this decomposition, etc. Their tensor product. Let me see. I'll try to give you as soon as possible. Okay. So that's all. So I'll stop here. And the thing is that